generation experiences a moment that changes how we work, communicate, and live. For many of us, it was the internet. Then came social media, which completely transformed how we connected, built businesses, and shared ideas. But what if those weren't the real disruption? What if they were simply preparing us for the one we're living through now? In this conversation with Stacy Sutton, we reflect on what it was like to navigate those earlier waves of change and why artificial intelligence feels fundamentally different, but at the same time, the same. We explore the opportunities, the risk, and the uncomfortable questions leaders need to start asking, from what is the future of work and what is critical thinking and how do we increase critical thinking, to whether AI is making us more capable or quietly eroding the very skills that made us successful. This isn't a conversation about tools, it's a conversation about the next chapter of human work. You and I met at one of the previous disruptions that we went through as a society, which was Web 2.0 before it was called social media. And I was having a conversation yesterday with someone, and I said that was the bridge to where we're at today. Today, we're now actually entering a new age. We thought that was so disruptive because it was coming after the internet, and the internet was so disruptive. But I think those were just basically the building blocks to where we're at today. And I think this is actually us entering the new age.
I agree, and I think this is going to be even more disruptive than the previous two.
So tell me a little bit about how you've experienced the disruptions from the internet and Web 2.0 and all of that in your career.
Yeah, I've been through many disruptions in my career. I'm a marketer by trade, and when I started working at ad agencies early in my career, it was all print, radio, TV, outdoor, and direct mail, and that was what we had. And people kept talking about the one-to-one future, and when the internet came around, I was fascinated by it and jumped on it and started overseeing website development projects and then learned how to do SEO before Google was launched, if you can believe that. And just really had a passion for it. And I would say overall, there's good and bad with everything, obviously, but overall, the internet has enriched my life. It was just so much more interesting, and just seeing how fast everything changed. I mean, radio, TV, print, outdoor, direct mail really hadn't changed in decades. Now we had this new medium that was so interactive. And then we got into Web 2.0, as you talked about, social media and all that, where we're no longer beholden to publishers, but you and I can be publishers and content creators, and it just allowed more humanity to rise to the top, more people to be heard without having to go through a publisher of some type. Certainly there's plenty of negatives, but I think overall it's been very positive. Upcoming changes now with AI, I'm not so sure that they will overall be as positive. I hope they will, but I think there's a lot more room for things to go wrong.
What are some of your concerns?
Concerned about job loss, of course, especially for younger folks. I mean, I think people like you and I who are experienced and strategic thinkers and have great networks, I think we're going to be fine. Folks just coming out of college or, did their first couple of jobs, I think it's going to be tough for them to find work. I think there's going to be a greater divide between the haves and the have-nots, and that, I mean, there already is. I think that's going to get worse. That's never a good thing. Those societies never end well. Worried about the environment, of course, um, inflation, and honestly, just people losing the ability to do critical thinking. I mean, if I'm honest, I know I'm not sure I'm as good of a writer as I was before. I was a really good writer, and it's just so easy to take the shortcut now. I'm worried a little bit that I'm losing my ability to be a really good writer.
One of the things I'm experiencing with that, because I take pride in calling myself a writer, as you know,
Hmm.
and I initially started using AI to have it teach me writing. So one of my first prompts, I started writing poetry when I was in elementary school, and my poetry never got beyond high school level.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had a hard time finding somebody who could truly teach me how to improve that. And so one of my very first prompts with ChatGPT was teach me how to write poetry. And I told it how to teach me, and I told it what I wanted to learn and how to critique my work. And it even told me how to read my work. Because I think the biggest challenge I have with poetry is understanding the rhythm of it, which you don't have to worry about when you're writing articles or essays or fiction, even. And then I did find myself being okay with the good that came out of the AI writing for my articles. It was still my thinking. It was still the ideas I put together that other people may not have seen that those ideas go together.
Right.
But as I would read my articles and then read other people's articles on the internet, they just sounded too similar. So it
Right.
wasn't so much that it was bad writing. I know a lot of people would call AI slop, but I mean, I did put a lot of thinking in behind my
Yeah.
writing,
Yeah.
but it just sounded like everybody else, even if the thinking was different.
Yeah.
And so AI has gotten better, Claude especially now, where it still takes me. I think this last article I wrote took me 4 hours to write, maybe five. So I'm still putting a lot into it,
Yeah.
but Claude is getting a lot better of knowing my voice, which takes a lot of the effort off of me because now it's still going to sound like my voice,
Right.
even though I am getting some assistance, I guess, AI assistance.
But that's the way to do it. I mean, you're not just throwing something in and taking whatever is the first draft that comes out. You're putting in context and background, and it knows your voice, and you're probably going back and forth on edits several times.
But think about social media and how much slop came out in the first years of social media. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing here is that we are just really, it's so much of these initial stages of AI reminds me of those initial years of Web 2.0 and social media. The disruption is going to be much bigger and it's going to enable a lot of other disruptive technologies
Yeah.
that people aren't even thinking about yet
Yeah.
because it's not a new well, again, think about social media. Social media enabled a lot of other disruptions that we didn't even think about, but this is going to, just be exponential.
And I just keep thinking about how in the early days of television, they would have a radio announcer reading an ad, and the early days of the internet, it was brochureware, right? We took our brochure and we put it on the internet. I mean, I don't think we can even start to begin to comprehend the new use cases that just haven't been discovered yet.
Exactly. If there's one lesson from this conversation, it's that history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it does often rhyme. The internet changed how we found information. Social media changed who could create it and distribute it, and AI is changing who or what creates alongside with us or collaborates with us. The technology will continue to evolve, but the real challenge isn't keeping up with every new model. It's deciding what parts of our humanity we want to strengthen while the technology accelerates around us. Thanks for joining us. If this conversation made you think differently about AI, leadership, or the future of work, please subscribe. And if this episode is for somebody you know, please share. Thank you.